He was 11 years old. He went on holiday with his mother and grandfather, and he did not come home for 6 years. No ransom note, no violence, no stranger in the night. Just a boy who got on a plane for a 2-week trip to Spain and disappeared into a life his grandmother never agreed to, never accepted, and never stopped fighting to end. My name is not important. What matters is this story, because by the time we reach the end of it, you're going to understand exactly how a child can vanish in plain sight, how love can be used as a cage, and how one teenage boy, alone in the snow, in the French mountains in the dead of winter, made the decision that changed everything. Stay with me until the end, because the moment he walked out of those mountains is one of the most extraordinary things you will ever hear. If this is your first time here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button right now and tap the bell so you never miss a story. This channel exists for the missing, for the forgotten, for the ones still waiting to be found. Now, let us go back to where it all began. Oldham, Greater Manchester, late September 2017. Picture it. Gray clouds sitting low over rows of modest terraced houses. The kind of streets where everybody knows which car belongs to which neighbor, where kids still play football outside until the light runs out, where life moves at the pace of routine and nobody thinks that is a bad thing. In one of those houses lived a boy named Alex Batty, 11 years old, sandy hair, bright eyes, the kind of child who could hold a conversation with an adult and leave them feeling like they had learned something. He was an avid reader, adventure stories, mostly. He was obsessed with stars and with how things were built, and he had already decided, in the quiet, certain way that some children do decide things, that he wanted to be an engineer one day. He wanted to design bridges. Bridges to the places he had only ever read about. His life was simple. School, friends, weekend football, a bedroom with posters on the wall, and books left open on the desk. Enough. More than enough. Because at the center of all of it was his grandmother, Susan Caruana. Susan had been Alex's legal guardian since his parents separated years before. Warm, practical, unshakable. She was the steady heartbeat of his world. Mornings in their home began with the smell of toast. She tucked handwritten notes into his school lunches. She checked his homework with the kind of patience that never made him feel small. She kept the whole machine of his life running without ever making it feel like effort. Alex called her Nan. One word, and in that one word lived everything. Safety, belonging, home. Then came a phone call. Late September 2017. Alex's mother, Melanie Batty, rang the house. Free-spirited, in her late 30s, always restless, always looking toward the next horizon. She and her father, David Batty, Alex's maternal grandfather, had a proposal. A 2-week family holiday. Marbella, Spain. Sun and sea and beaches and ice cream. Proper family time, Melanie said. Her voice was bright with it. Susan could not go. Her health had been fragile for some time, but she trusted them. They were family. After careful thought, she said yes. Bring them back with stories and a tan, she told them, almost certainly smiling when she said it. Alex packed his own backpack. Books. His favorite football. A sketch notebook. On the 1st of October, at the airport, he hugged Susan tightly. I will miss you, Nan, he whispered. She waved them through security and drove home through the beginning of the rain, already picturing his face when he came back. The flight to Malaga was everything a boy like Alex could have hoped for. Warm air met them as they stepped off the plane. White walls gleaming in the Spanish sun. Palm trees swaying. The Mediterranean spreading out ahead of them like something from a story. The early days were perfect. Alex and Melanie splashed in the waves together. David showed him hidden coves. Evenings brought long meals under open skies and a rare, tender closeness that Alex soaked up hungrily. He was happy, genuinely happy. And then, October the 8th, return day, bags half-packed, transfer to the airport already booked. Alex was running through the stories he would tell his school friends on Monday morning. Dolphins, warm water, the way the Spanish sun fell on your face. Then Melanie sat down beside him, calm, unhurried, the way she always was when she had already made up her mind. We're staying a little longer, sweetheart. There is so much more to explore. Alex hesitated. He thought of Susan. He thought of school. David nodded and said a few more days would not hurt anyone. Alex was 11 years old. These were the adults who loved him. He did not argue. That evening, Melanie handed him her phone. "Say hello to Nan," she urged. Alex looked into the small camera. Already tanned. Hair already lightened by a week of Spanish sun. "Hi, Nan," he said. "I'm not coming home yet. I am with Mom and Granddad. We are having a great time. I will see you soon." He smiled. The video was sent. In Oldham, Susan had been making dinner. She was expecting holiday photographs. A sunset maybe. A selfie on the beach. She opened the message and stopped moving entirely. She watched her grandson say the words. "I'm not coming home yet." She played it again and again. Her hands had begun to shake. She called Melanie. No answer. She called David. No answer. The silence on the other end of those calls told her something her mind was not yet ready to form into words. But her body already knew. Something was wrong. Something was deeply, irreversibly wrong. Susan Caruana put down her phone and picked it up again, and she called the police. Within hours, a missing person investigation had been launched. Interpol was alerted. Posters were printed and distributed across the United Kingdom and Spain. In the photograph chosen for the appeal, Alex looked out with an open, hopeful expression. Sandy hair, school uniform, the image of a boy with his whole life ahead of him. It was the image that would appear on television screens and newspaper front pages and community center notice boards for years. Susan faced the cameras, voice steady, just barely. "If anyone knows anything, my grandson is everything to me." That night, in a house that had not changed since a boy walked out of it with a backpack full of books and a football, Susan sat on the edge of his bed. The books still open to the last page he had read, the jacket still on its hook, and she whispered into the quiet, "Come home, Alex. We are waiting." In the days that followed, the truth settled over Alex the way cold does when you have been outside too long and finally admit you're not warm anymore. They were not going back. Instead of returning to Marbella, Melanie and David drove inland, deeper into Andalusia, twisting mountain roads through olive groves that stretched as far as Alex could see, the air thick with wild rosemary and the dry smell of earth baking in the afternoon heat. He sat in the back of their battered van and watched the jagged peaks of the Sierra Nevada climb slowly out of the horizon. Part of him still believed it, still told himself this was just the adventure getting bigger. Part of him was already beginning to understand that it was not. They stopped in a small village beneath the mountains. An old friend of Melanie's, a Dutch artist, offered them shelter in a traditional stone farmhouse. Thick walls, red-tiled roof, a garden overflowing with herbs and lavender. No rental agreement. No utilities. They traded labor for lodging, repairing roofs, picking olives, running informal yoga sessions for a loose community of like-minded people who drifted in and out with the seasons. Melanie called it living off-grid, a life free from systems and schedules and the slow machinery of rules. Close to nature, close to each other. Morning started late. No alarm clocks. No uniforms to iron. Melanie brewed herbal teas and spoke softly to Alex about the healing energy of plants, the body's connection to the earth, the freedom waiting on the other side of the life they had left behind. Alex listened. He liked the warmth of the mug in his hands. He liked the gentleness in her voice. But in the back of his mind, he could still taste the milky coffee Susan made every single school morning without fail. David filled the hours with practical lessons. How to fix a solar panel. How to read the sky before rain arrived. How to barter at the village market without coming away embarrassed. Life does not need much money, David told him. It needs skill and trust. Alex learned quickly. He always had. He kept the sketch notebook from Oldham and filled its pages with what surrounded him. Mountain pools the color of turquoise. Starlit skies unpolluted by city light. The faces of people who passed through and moved on. A French family in a converted truck. Dutch cyclists carrying their whole lives on two wheels. School had vanished from his life without ceremony or explanation. In its place came reading under olive trees. Astronomy. Herbalism. Philosophy. Alex loved astronomy most of all. At night, he would lie on the dry grass and stare upward and trace constellations he had only ever glimpsed dimly through his bedroom window back in Oldham. Orion, he would whisper, that is Orion. For the first time in his life, he truly felt how vast the universe was, how small, and yet somehow held he was within it. And those moments were real. Do not misunderstand. The beauty was real. The love was real. Melanie and David cared for him, fed him, kept him safe, showed him a world far wider than the streets of Oldham. But love was not the same as belonging. Quiet as evening shadows, an ache had begun to grow in him. He missed the school bus horn in the mornings. He missed break time and muddy football pitches and the particular chaos of classroom when the teacher stepped out. He missed Susan smoothing his hair when something had gone wrong. He missed the glass of warm milk she left on his desk when he stayed up too late reading. Sometimes, when Melanie and David were asleep, Alex sat alone by the window and stared into the dark, and asked himself a question he was too afraid to say aloud. When am I going home? If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with the words I am still here. Let us see who is truly following this story. And if you have not subscribed yet, this is the moment. Hit that button, because what happens next, you need to hear. Back in Oldham, Susan Caruana had not stopped. She put up fresh posters in every shop and community center she could find. She asked friends traveling to Spain to take bundles with them. She kept Alex's room exactly as he had left it. Books open to the page he was reading. Football in the corner. Jacket on its hook. Every evening, she sat on the edge of his bed and said the same words into the still air of the empty room. Alex, Nan is still here. Home is still waiting for you. October became November. November became December. Christmas arrived without him. Susan baked a small cake. She lit candles. She sang softly, alone, for a boy somewhere under a distant sky who did not know she was doing it. She did not cry in front of anyone, but in the quiet of the house, when there was no one left to hold herself together for, the tears came on their own. By spring 2019, Alex had turned 13. His sandy hair had grown long and sun-bleached at the ends. His voice was beginning to deepen at the edges. The boy who once raced home from school to take penalties against the garden wall now moved with the easy, unhurried stride of someone who had learned to walk long distances without complaint. The family had drifted farther south, then east through Andalusia, and eventually across the Strait of Gibraltar into Morocco, where they would stay for entire seasons. In Marrakesh, the souks overwhelmed everything. Mountains of saffron and cumin. The metallic clang of hammers on brass. The call to prayer rolling over the rooftops 5 times a day. Alex picked up fragments of Arabic and Berber from street vendors and mountain families. They slept in quiet riads with tiled courtyards and pitched tents on high cold plateaus where the stars burned so close they felt almost reachable. Campfires became their living room. Someone always had a guitar. Laughter bounced off rock faces in the dark. Stories moved between half a dozen languages. And for a 13-year-old still carrying the remnants of childhood wonder, those nights could still feel like the best adventure novel ever written. But the wonder was no longer enough on its own. He started noticing what was missing. Other teenagers, glimpsed in snatched moments at cafes with Wi-Fi, had exams ahead of them, prom plans, driving lessons promised as birthday presents. Alex had none of those milestones. No report cards, no qualifications, no fixed address to write on any form. When Melanie spoke dreamily about moving to Portugal next, or perhaps farther north to Scandinavia, Alex began asking questions that made the air in the room tighten. What about school certificates? He asked. How will I get into university? What happens when I want a job? The answers were always gentle, always vague. The world does not need pieces of paper to know your worth. You're learning more out here than any classroom could teach. Alex would nod, because he loved her, because he did not want the argument. But inside, the questions piled up slowly, stone by stone, until the weight of them was something he carried everywhere. He began keeping a secret journal, scraps of paper torn from old notebooks, hidden at the bottom of his backpack, written in tiny, careful handwriting. Today we swam in a secret pool. The water was so clear I could see fish beneath my feet. But I keep thinking about my friends in Oldham. Do they still remember me? Do they think I ran away on purpose? And on another page, written later, somewhere in the mountains, Mom says freedom is the greatest gift. I think freedom is only good if you can choose to stop being free sometimes. In Oldham, the investigation had not closed. In February 2018, what would have been Alex's 12th birthday, Greater Manchester Police released a new appeal with age-progressed images showing how he might look after a year away. Susan appeared on television again. Her voice softer now, but no less certain. We are not getting any younger. We love you so much, Alex. Please come home. Melanie Batty and David Batty had been formally named as wanted for child abduction and breach of a custody order. Interpol red notices were issued. Ports are monitored. Known commune networks along the Spanish and Moroccan coasts were flagged. Possible sightings were followed up. A rumor of a British family in a converted van near Tetuan. A report of a fair-haired boy at a ferry terminal. Most of those leads evaporated, leaving nothing behind but the particular silence that follows a dead end. Detective Constable Declan O'Reilly and his team kept the file open, reviewed it periodically, chased fresh tips, consulted colleagues in Spain and Morocco. The investigation was patient because it had to be, and Susan was patient because she had no other choice. She kept appearing on BBC Radio Manchester on the anniversaries. She kept writing to newspapers. She kept scanning the faces in crowds on ordinary Oldham afternoons, half expecting to spot a taller, sun-bronzed version of her grandson turning a corner. Alex's room remained unchanged. The football in the corner, the posters on the wall, curling slightly at the edges now, but still there, still exactly where he had put them, pinned by a boy who had no idea he would not be coming home to take them down. By late 2021, Alex was 15, taller than Melanie now, shoulders beginning to broaden. The physical traces of childhood almost entirely replaced by the early outline of the man he was becoming. The constant movement that had once felt like pure freedom now felt, on many days, like running on the spot. Friends came and went with the seasons. No one stayed long enough to become real. He borrowed phones whenever Wi-Fi appeared in borrowed riads or roadside cafes and scrolled through social media in careful, secret bursts. Other teenagers his age celebrating exam results, planning gap years, getting apprenticeships, the ordinary milestones of an ordinary adolescence. A quiet, cold envy settled into his stomach and would not shift. He still loved the wild beauty. He did. Sunrises over the Atlas Mountains that dragged the sky from black to gold in long, slow minutes. Swimming in hidden canyons where the water tasted clean and cold and purely itself. Nights so clear he could trace the entire Milky Way with one finger. But love was not the same as belonging. He had known that for a while now. And out here, moving and moving and moving, that gap between love and belonging was growing wider every season. He wanted direction. A future he could see stretching ahead of him rather than one that simply appeared beneath his feet. He wanted exams, qualifications. He still wanted to study astronomy, engineering, computer science, dreams he had carried since he was 11 years old, sitting in a bedroom in Oldham with a sketch notebook on his knee. Dreams the road had been quietly burying under one endless horizon after another. One evening near Chefchaouen, the famous blue-washed city of northern Morocco, while Melanie meditated in the courtyard below and David worked on the van in the alley, Alex climbed alone to the rooftop terrace and looked out over the maze of blue walls and the darkening sky. And for the first time, he let the thought arrive without guilt, without pushing it back down. I do not think I can keep doing this forever. He said nothing. Not yet. But the seed had been planted, and seeds do not wait for permission to grow. By late 2023, Alex had turned 17. The family had left Morocco behind and settled, for the first time in years, into something approaching stillness. A friend from the old commune network had lent them a small stone cottage high in the French Pyrenees, near the village of Quillan. Thick granite walls, a wood-burning stove, windows looking straight out onto rugged peaks and deep green valleys, snow dusting the ridges even in early autumn. For once they were not packing up every few weeks. The pace slowed. The days stretched longer. And in that unexpected stillness, Alex finally had the quiet he needed to hear what had been building inside him for years. The dark nights were the hardest. After Melanie and David went to bed, he would sit on the rough stone step outside the cottage, wrapped in an old blanket, and stare upward at a sky so clear the Milky Way looked like something spilled and never cleaned up across black velvet. The silence was different here, deeper than the Moroccan desert, colder than the Andalusian hills, old in a way that made him feel how young he still was. Questions he'd been pressing down for years rose steadily to the surface and refused to go back under. What do I actually want? He still loved the wildness. Frost on pine needles at first light. Stream water so cold it made his teeth ache. The feeling of standing at the foot of something ancient and vast and indifferent to human worry. But love was not belonging. He had known that for a long time. And out here, finally still, he let himself know it all the way down. He wanted roots. Friends who remembered his birthday without being reminded. Teachers who knew his name. A future he could plan for rather than drift into. He wanted to study, truly study, not under olive trees with borrowed books, but in a proper classroom with a syllabus and an exam at the end, and something to show for it. He wanted to build the bridges he had been dreaming about since he was 11 years old. Those dreams had survived 6 years on the road. Now they were asking him to do something about them. One night in early December, 2023, the cottage was asleep around him. Wind pressed against the shutters. Alex packed in silence. Warm layers. The journal, now thick with years of hidden thoughts. A small flashlight. The skateboard Melanie had given him years before in Spain, a gift he had never once been able to part with. A few euros saved from odd jobs and market bartering. He tore a piece of paper from his journal and wrote a short note and left it on the kitchen table. I love you both. I need to go home. Do not worry. I will be okay. He slipped out before first light. The Pyrenees in December do not forgive hesitation. Snow lay ankle-deep on the paths. Wind cut through every gap in his clothing with a patience that felt almost deliberate. Alex walked uphill first, following faint forestry tracks away from the village so no one would see him leave. Blisters formed within the first hour. His legs burned. He sheltered in abandoned barns when the cold became unbearable. He drank from streams. He ate the last of the bread he had taken from the kitchen. For days. For nights. Each step heavier than the one before. Each step also undeniably right. He was not running away from his mother and grandfather. He understood that, with a clarity that surprised even him. He was running toward the life he needed. Toward school. Toward certainty. Toward a woman who had kept his room exactly as he left it and sat on the edge of his empty bed every night for 6 years and said his name into the dark. On the 4th night, near the town of Quillen, headlights swept across him on a dark road. A white van slowed. The window came down. The driver was a 26-year-old named Fabian Axedini, a chiropractic student doing delivery shifts to pay his way through his studies. He looked at the figure standing in the snow at the side of the road in the middle of the night, a tall, exhausted teenager with hollow eyes and blistered feet, and he asked the simplest possible question. You okay, mate? Alex's voice was unsteady with cold, with exhaustion, with something else too, something that sounded almost like relief. He had been rehearsing these words for hours, maybe for years. I need help. My name is Alex Batty. I have been missing for 6 years. Fabian did not hesitate. Get in. You are safe now. The van was warm. A blanket appeared. Fabian drove on and finished his last delivery route without pressing for details, simply letting the heat do its quiet work while Alex began, slowly, to talk. The holiday in Spain that became 6 years. The olive groves and the Moroccan souks and the high Pyrenean plateau. The secret journal. The note on the kitchen table. The 4 days alone in the snow. Fabian listened. When the deliveries were finished, he drove straight to the police station in Quillen. It was just before midnight. Alex walked through the door. The officers on the night shift looked at him with a particular confusion of people encountering something entirely outside of their routine. Then Alex said his name. Computers hummed to life. Records were pulled. The International Missing Persons Alert, still active after 6 years, appeared on the screen. Greater Manchester Police were on the line within minutes. A French detective asked gentle questions while arrangements were made for a medical check. Alex was exhausted, dehydrated. His feet were raw with blisters. But he was coherent. He was calm. And by every assessment available to the officers in that small French police station in the middle of the night, he was unharmed. No signs of abuse. No signs of neglect. Only the deep, settled weariness of someone who had walked through winter mountains toward the only place that had ever truly been home. 6 years, 2 months, several thousand miles. Alex Batty was found. Melanie Batty was later arrested in the Pyrenees region and extradited to the United Kingdom to face charges. David Batty was also subject to legal proceedings. Alex was reunited with Susan and began the long, quiet work of rebuilding the ordinary life he had spent 6 years missing. He spoke publicly about his experience with a composure that surprised many people who heard him. A young man already fluent in several languages, already deeply read, still curious about the universe in all the ways the road had never managed to take from him. He still wanted to study. He still wanted to design bridges. Some things the road could not take. If this story moved you, please take a moment right now. Like this video. Leave a comment below. Share it with someone who believes in keeping a light on for the people we love. And if you have not subscribed yet, this is your moment. Every story on this channel belongs to someone who deserves to be remembered. Hit that subscribe button. Stay with us. There are more stories to tell.